Welcome back. We are joined today by Colonel Douglas Macgregor, a decorated combat veteran, author, and former advisor to the U.S. Secretary of Defense. Thank you for coming back on. We are now, heading towards the end of day three of the war against Iran, and I think it's fair to say that I think Trump was hoping for a quick war, but it doesn't appear that there will be any quick regime change operation happening here. How are you assessing it, though? How should we, I guess, measure the developments of the war and what to expect?
I think the first thing we can say is that the Iranians have targeted at least 27 bases, including port facilities in the Middle East, ranging from Incirlik Air Base all the way down to Dubai in the Gulf. So the war has been effectively regionalized, and the consequences of these actions cannot really be fully appreciated yet. Everyone knows about the Gulf and what has already happened in the oil markets. Today, the oil markets in Europe opened about 20% higher, simply based on the probability that the oil supply would be disrupted for some period of time. So I think we're headed towards more than $100 a barrel. We'll get there pretty quickly. How high, I don't know, but I think that's going to happen. And if you look at a place like the United Arab Emirates, very inexpensive drones have defeated what appear to be some of the world's most expensive air and missile defenses and put a number of airstrips, airports out of business. You have to understand that in the Gulf, there are all sorts of international conglomerates, especially a lot of Indian conglomerates, that do huge, huge business through the United Arab Emirates and Dubai. All of this is effectively being shut down. You also have millions of people. There are about 4.6 million Indians who own businesses in the Emirates who are now stranded, and they are a critical component of the economy. In addition to those, there are, hundreds of thousands, probably millions of Europeans, Americans, and others who are stranded. Right now, you've got to cross the mountains down to Muscat in order to find an aircraft that'll take you out. I think the damage that's being done to the oil infrastructure is only now really beginning. We have evidence that some oil refineries have been struck, particularly in Saudi Arabia. I think we're going to see more of that. So we're at the beginning of what is ostensibly a long regional war. And we haven't even begun to assess the possibility that others may become involved, because this emergency created by the Gulf War affects India, it affects Northeast Asia, it affects Turkey, it affects Europe. Effectively, the entire world is now focused on this war that is ostensibly between Israel and Iran. Now, the funny thing about this war is that it did not begin with a joint Israeli-American assault. It began with an Israeli attack. And Secretary of State Rubio seems to have told the group of 8, these are senators in the U.S. Senate that are part of the Senate Armed Services Committee, that Israel began the attack. We had not been informed of it. We were not warned that they were going to do this. All we knew was always a possibility. And we decided to simply join in because we were not yet satisfied with our posture at the beginning of this. So we seem to have come late to the party, and now we've begun to feel the full impact of all these missiles. A number of missiles have been fired at ships that have yet to strike them. And we know that 3 F-15 fighters were downed. We're attributing that to friendly fire, although there are some disputes about that in terms of others in the region and the world who seem to think the Iranians did it. In any case, we lost 3 F-15s. We didn't lose the pilots. But we have lost American sailors, soldiers, sailors, airmen, or Marines. We just don't know how many. We've admitted, I think, to 3 or 4, but I suspect there's more than that. So the question is, where are we headed? I think we're headed into a long campaign. And, you listen, I'm sure you listen to statements by Secretary Hegseth and President Trump, laced with all this business about the state sponsor of terrorism and how it has to be, it will have to submit ultimately to Israel and the United States. I think these are very incautious and stupid statements. They don't comport with reality. I mean, frankly, Glenn, if we were interested in combating radical Islam, we would probably be focused on Pakistan and certainly on Syria right now, which is headed by the remnants of ISIS and Al Qaeda. Those two states don't seem to come up for discussion very much. And Pakistan, in particular, has been the sort of incubator of radical Islam and Islamist terrorism for a long time. So this is really about Israel's interest in destroying Iran and removing it as an obstacle to Israeli military hegemony or Jewish supremacy, however you want to put it. And we're into it. We're committed to it. And I think ultimately logistics will probably have a big impact because we will eventually run out of missiles. And I think we're on the road already because I just don't think President Trump or his advisors really believed that they would end up in a long war with Iran. And that's where they are right now.
Well, besides from the military targets, as you mentioned, we also seen attacks on ports, oil refineries, shipping, airports, some hotels. There seems to be several civilian targets as well. How did this take you by surprise? And how do you see I guess, the cost benefit to Iran here? Because on one hand, they want to inflict as much pain as possible, but I assume they don't want to pull in too many other external actors. Because doesn't this risk entering into the war? The Gulf states or even the Europeans suggested that they would come in and defend their assets, their bases, and their allies. How do you assess the calculations on the Iranian side?
I think the Iranians know that the Emirates and the Saudis have played a duplicitous game, that they have tried to play both sides to the middle, as we say. So I don't think the Iranians regret any of that. And I think they want to make the world feel pain because they are feeling acute pain. So that's not surprising in the least. As far as the Europeans are concerned, they've known from the very beginning Iran presents no threat. That was laughable when we insisted on this installation in Romania, this anti-ballistic missile installation, on the grounds that we were protecting our European allies from Iranian missile attack. Nobody believed in that. That's nonsense. As far as the Europeans intervening to do anything, I think the British have sent their F-22s. Whether or not they've done anything, I don't know. Now, I know that their bases on Cyprus have been struck, and I assume probably put out of action. So I don't know what to make of European intervention. I think that's more hot air, but we'll see. They could certainly send some ships, but then again, they would be in harm's way. And it all depends on whether or not the European peoples are going to sign on for this. Again, you've got to distinguish Iran and the Shia from the vast majority of Muslims who are Sunni and Arabs and Turks. And I think the Europeans are a little more sophisticated than the Americans. They do not mix them up. They understand Iran is different, and Iran's interests are different. And Iran, as a civilizational state, Persia, is an entirely different animal from the rest of these post-World War I artificial constructs. So, we'll see, but I don't expect much out of the Europeans. I'm more concerned about the Chinese and the Russians. And when I say concerned, I mean I wonder how long they sit on the sidelines and allow this to go on, because this is not in their interests, obviously. They want Iran to survive. Iran is a critical component of BRICS. It's part of the Belt and Road Initiative. The Turks want Iran to survive. I haven't heard any complaints out of the Turks about destroying our air base at Incirlik, because they know that that's our air base, and they have always been reticent to allow us to operate from that base against anyone we wanted in the region. So I think we're seeing the world sort of move in an entirely new direction. I would argue this is the end of Sykes-Picot. I think the maps are going to change. I'll be very surprised if all these family dictatorships in the Persian Gulf survive in their current form. I think the damage that's being done economically is going to stay with us for some period of time. The Indians have already turned to purchase oil again from the Russians, and that makes perfect sense for them. I'm surprised they ever went along with us to begin with. The dollar is losing airspeed and altitude. Uh, I mean, economically, this is a catastrophe. Financially, for us, I think it's a disaster. It's going to take more time, but over time, it's going to get worse for us. Remember, we are the ones that have been boasting to the world about how powerful we are and how the entire world needs to shake in fear of the American military power. Well, then people are going to expect us to perform. Iran, on the other hand, hasn't got to do anything other than survive. As long as Iran survives and the longer the war lasts, the weaker we look, the weaker Israel looks, and the stronger Iran looks. And I think Iran is going to survive. I don't see any evidence that it's going to suddenly pick up the phone, call Washington, and beg for mercy. Don't see that happening. So we're in a real trick. I think at the end of the day, we're going to be swept out of the region. Look at what's happening in Iraq right now. The Shia are rising, and the Iraqi government wants us out of the country. It's wanted us out for years. I think we're going to have to get out. I don't think anybody living in the Gulf is going to want us in proximity to any of their harbors or airports or anything else. So I think this is a developing disaster for us. And Israel's Iron Dome isn't working very well. And although we are definitely trying to fire missiles in support of Israel at air and missile defense, the Iranians seem to have moved technologically much further than we anticipated. They are now able to deliver missiles that have decoys that, produce multiple warheads, and then the real dangerous missile that you're trying to penetrate with flies through while we are preoccupied with decoys. So this is not working terribly well for us. But the interesting part is, in the West, the media, as always, is showing us a wonderful picture of American and Israeli military success. It's quite astonishing. I don't think that's the picture the rest of the world is beginning to get.